Springboks and All Blacks, folks. This is the game from Johannesburg. This weekend, the teams have been named. And then there's been a tweaking with Eben being back. That's a bit of big news. We'll go through some stats. We're going to go through the recent history predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. But boy, is this one big billing. This is the first matchup between Rassie and Razor. Razor's done it all at Super Rugby, but this is Test match rugby. Record from the Rugby Championship thus far, 1-1, which was kind of a bit below expectations. They were expected to win both their games at home against the Pumas. The Boks, on the other hand, 2-0 in Australia, a place they had traditionally kind of underperformed a bit, but no one would say the Boks did anything but smash it out of the park over in Australia. But now it's number 1 against number 3 in the world. It's All Blacks Springboks again. The teams are named. We're going to go through them. I got some stats for you because I love a stat. We got some recent history, some predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how this one is going to go. It is going to be an absolutely massive matchup. Speaking of massive, as I mentioned, the initial omission of Eben Etzebeth was a massive call under a bit of an injury cloud, but he's had something of a miraculous recovery. Initially, he kind of ruled himself out, I believe, of the squad naming, which they do on the Monday, but then he was able to train. So he's kind of been a late change. If there's a graphic there which shows the Springboks lineup, it is incorrect because swap Marco van Staden's name with Eben Etzebeth. He is there on the bench. Ideally, you'd like to have him starting. He's a big human. He's played, is it going to be like 125 tests, which is incredible. He's getting right up there in terms of top tests for South African players. And he's the top line-out guy of the Rugby Championship thus far. Puts in big hits and does a bit of everything, does Big Eben. But he's on the bench. That's a bit of good news for the Boks after initially not having him named. And Rassie Erasmus in his press conference spent half of the time, sadly, having to talk about their injury crisis because they mentioned that Klein is out, Murat is out, Achie Snyman is out, Mostert's out. Those guys are all second rowers. Evan Roos is also unavailable. Edel van der Merwe is unavailable. Faf de Klerk, Andre Esterhuizen. The list is long, unfortunately. Like Rassie couldn't even keep track of them all in terms of like how long each guy's out for because there's just that many. Unbelievable what an injury list it is at the moment. So fortunate for the Boks that Big Eben is at least available on the bench. The squad on the rest of the kind of squad naming is reverted back to more like the full-strength Boks side. When I first say full strength, you know what I mean, in terms of the kind of more experienced, full of Rugby World Cup winning guys, but there's certainly a few lesser experienced guys as well as they do transition the side from that 2023 and in some cases 2019 squad through to kind of looking forward to 2027. I mean, the front row, Oxenche, Bongi, and Mbambi and Frans Malherbe, that's a bit of good news. They'll be certainly putting pressure on the All Blacks at scrum time, but the All Blacks are a good scrummaging team. So the front row battle is going to be a big one because you feel like the Aussies couldn't put up enough of a battle against the Boks over in Australia. It was a real area of strength for the Boks. The All Blacks will be looking to at least kind of limit the damage that these guys can do. But Bongi being back, Franz being back, and then Ox up from the bench, they'll be looking to put the pressure on, absolutely. But the second row being different with Nokia and Peter Steff being there may have an effect on the scrum as well. Like, you like it when Big Eben is there because you know he's a part of a driving force in that Springbok scrum. I mean, Peter Steff, the last time he played lock at a pinch, he did really well, and he's been amazing in the Rugby Championship thus far. Rassie mentioned they would have liked to arrest him thus far, but the injuries have meant that he's not had a chance. He's had a heap of carries, he's had a heap of tackles, he's even got clean breaks and whatnot. He is genuinely doing a bit of everything, is Peter Steff. Rod Nokia, low on the experience scale, but played in the last game. So we'll be hoping to get through a decent chunk of minutes against the All Blacks before likely potentially getting sub for Big Eben, but we'll kind of have to see how they play things with the substitutes. Back row of Sia Kolisi, Ben Jason Dixon and Jasper Visa. First time we've seen that combo ever. I mean, Jasper being back after his long suspension is a bit of good news. He's going to take the kickoffs and he's going to run straight at some guys in black jerseys. He's their big physical presence. He's probably the one guy that you would look at and go, hope he doesn't get a card. Like for the All Blacks, it's probably Scotty Barrett. For Springboks fans, it's probably Jasper Visa because he's a fiery character, but he's certainly, as I said, very direct ball carrier, very physical presence. Ben Jason Dixon has been really impressive since making his Springboks debut this year. He keeps getting compared to Peter Steff, and for good reasons. He's really busy around the park. He's a bit of tall timber. He's that kind of lock-loose forward hybrid. And then Sia, the kind of Captain Fantastic, getting into all those ruck clean-outs and making all those tackles. He's going to do what we know he can do. But interestingly, with Eben coming in and Van Staden dropping out, the usual guy who replaces Sia is not there. So Sia has not tended to play much more than kind of 50-odd minutes in recent times, but it's more often than not, he's getting subbed for Marco van Staden, so that's going to be an interesting one too. Corbus Ronak gets the nod at 9, so that's a bit of an experienced 9 alongside the less than experienced Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu, but he's playing Sasha like a man way more mature than his years. He's got very limited kind of test caps. What is he, 6? And he's playing like a kind of old hand already. He's he's got a lot of excitement about him in South Africa, and for pretty good reason. So his battle up against Damian McKenzie is going to be an interesting one. Damian's obviously been around a lot longer, but hasn't played many more games in the number 10 jersey at test level than Sasha. Damian's mainly been a 23 jumper, sometimes a 15 jumper for the All Blacks. So they're kind of in similar positions in leading their sides at 10. So fascinating battle in itself. Midfielder Delende and Creel kind of resumes and has probably been, well, one of, certainly, but probably up there with the best midfield duo in World Rugby. I mean, when got injured before the World Cup, it seemed like the end of the world, but Jesse Creel has certainly proved a lot of people that he is absolute class. And then the back three. The back three is unbelievable. Just in terms of pace and attack, wow, the weather gods have just also heard me talking about these guys. I don't know if you heard that thunder. Kurtley Arendse, he's lightning. Cheslin Colby, he's lightning. And Apalele Fasi, he's lightning. Very, very quick back three. No Willie Leroux. So you're missing that bit of experience. That guy to come in at first receiver and help out Sasha will be an interesting one, because Willie doesn't do as much of the flashy stuff, but helps unlock opposition defenses and whatnot. Organizes the team really well. But Fasi is lightning quick. He's an absolute attacking weapon. So very, very exciting Springboks back three. As exciting as I think if you've ever seen from a Springbok side, right up there. Bench-wise, Malcolm Marx, Steenkamp, and Koch are the front row replacements. So Steenkamp is kind of the least experienced of those three guys, but certainly a good scrummager in his own right. Malcolm Marx has already bagged a couple of tries this Rugby Championship, so we know what he can do. Eben, as I mentioned, is back on the bench. As I mentioned, he's kind of a very welcome re-addition to the squad after not making the initial lineup. Elric Lowe is there. He drops to the bench. Quagga Smith, the super sub, is there, and two backs on the bench in terms of Grant Williams and Andre Pollard. It'll be interesting to see where Pollard comes in. Is it 10 to potentially slot some long-range shots at goal, or is he going to come on at 12? Sasha is pretty versatile in where he can play as well, so they've got plenty of options of moving the back line around, and Grant Williams with the pace will certainly be looking to punish anybody who's struggling with the altitude there at Joburg. But yeah, that is the Springboks 23, and she's looking a pretty good outfit. Now for the ABs, they have made a call which some predicted, and that is to see Sam Cane starting at 7. He broke his neck in South Africa before, so he has been there in the trenches and done it before. And he's doing it again. First game against the Boks since the World Cup final. You can bet he's going to have some tackles to make. He's going to have, I don't want to say a chip on his shoulder, but you know what I mean. He's going to want to really put himself out there, and that's the kind of player he is. He's going to want to tackle the house down. Absolutely. There's no spot for Papali'i in this side. Razor didn't mention him in the pre-match press conference as having an injury, but in the All Blacks team announcement, they did mention that Dalton has got a thumb injury, so has been kind of ruled out. So Sam Cane, promoted from the bench, gets to start against the Boks another time. Front row wise, Tamaiti Williams, Cody Taylor, and Tyrell Lomax. That's the same front row that dominated Argentina in that last game. Tamaiti Williams stepped in for the injured Ethan de Groot. Man, the rain is really coming down. Apparently it's going to be fine weather in Joburg for the game. But Tamaiti Williams came in for de Groot in that last game against Argentina, because de Groot's injured, didn't even travel to South Africa. That's how long his injury is ongoing. But he's 140 kilos of partly Western Australian and partly Kiwi beef. He was brought up in Western Australia. And if anyone's going to go up against Frans Malherbe and hopefully hold their own at altitude, Tamaiti Williams is as good a guy as we've got here in New Zealand, and he's he's been a powerful unit. So fingers crossed he has a good game. From a New Zealand perspective, you guys in South Africa, I think, have seen what Tyrell Lomax is about. His scrummaging has gone right up there in the last, I want to say, 2 years. I was a big doubter of his, but he certainly proved me wrong. And then the veteran in Taylor. Scotty Barrett, Tupa Vai, those are your lock and duo. So Scotty Barrett is back, having missed out on the first 2 games of the Rugby Championship with the finger injury, but he's back to captain the side. And as I said, with Visa for you guys in South Africa, Scotty Barrett's our one guy who's known to get an unfortunate card at times. When I say unfortunate, I mean kind of unnecessary. But, he's kept his nose pretty clean since he's got the captain, so fingers crossed that continues on. Tupa Vai is alongside him in the second row, so that's probably Razor's first choice locking duo at the minute, which is good news. And then the back row, apart from Sam Cane, you still got Ethan Blackadder there. He's the top tackler of the Rugby Championship, so it's kind of a double 7 combo with Ethan Blackadder being there. And then Adi Savia, he's the current World Player of the Year. He's our number 8, and you could argue he's another 7. So you could argue we've got 3 7s, but also you could say that Adi Savia, with the way his game has changed in kind of recent times, has become a out-and-out 8. He's certainly got the most carries of anybody in the Rugby Championship thus far, because that's what he's been doing for the ABs. He's less about the kind of high tackle count with the likes of a Kane or a Blackadder, so a different style player. TJ and DMAC, that's your 9-10 combo. TJ certainly brings the experience. Razor mentioned that he likes the way he and Cortez Ratima are going as the kind of experienced starter and then the kind of quick youngster from the bench. And then DMAC, as I mentioned, hasn't had that much time in the saddle over the years with the All Blacks, but he's getting the faith shown in him by Razor. And his kicking game, you would feel, will need to be on point against South Africa. Geordie Barrett and Rico continue on at 12 and 13. There's been a lot of spotlight kind of been put on both of these guys early on in Razor's time with the ABs, but they impressed in the last game. And Rico was also singled out by Razor as having taken on the feedback that he was kind of required to. So he's still ahead of ALB, who's on the bench. Caleb Clark on one wing. He's powerful. He's quick. He's pretty good in the air. And then Will Jordan, certainly one of the best try scorers in World Rugby. Him up against Kurtley Arendse is worth the price of admission in itself. And then Bodie Barrett, the veteran, the playmaker, there at 15. It's a pity we don't get to see him up against Villy, but him up against Fussy. Back Fussy in the gas stakes these days, but Bodie's still got a bit of gas about him even at his age. Aumua, Tuanga, Fussy and Newell, those are the front row replacements. Be interesting to see when the All Blacks front row comes on compared to the Boks, because you feel like the Boks have tended to pull the trigger a bit early with bringing on the bomb squad. Sam Derry, his first time in South Africa, but he's been really impressive all throughout the Super Rugby season and seems to have taken to test match rugby really well, but this will be a next step up for him over in Africa. Samapeni Fino was a little bit of a surprise selection because he was initially favoured by Razor at that number 6 jersey, but didn't really impress against England. Seemed to fall his way down the pecking order, but he's back in now. If Dalton Papali'i is indeed injured with his thumb, as the press release said, there's obviously a spot open. And he's a big dude, man. He's a proper hybrid lock-loose forward as well, so brings a bit of beef to kind of combat the Springboks up front, because the All Blacks have gone with the 3 backs with Ratima, ALB and Talea, so not tempted to kind of match the Boks with the kind of 6-2 split of their own. All right, now some stats for you folks, because you know I love a stat. Maul tries for South Africa, 2 against Wales, 1 against Portugal, 4 against Australia, 3 in that final game. If the All Blacks can attempt or somehow nullify the Springboks maul, that is one step closer to a successful performance. The Irish managed to not concede any maul tries against the Boks. It is certainly a big weapon. There's been heaps of talk about the Springboks attack under Tony Brown, but we also can't sleep on their defence. Some of their tackling percentages in their opponents this year, the likes of Wales and Australia and Ireland, and what are 92%, 89%, 89%, 87%, 94%. Like the Portuguese game was the kind of most loose one where they had an early red card, but 1 try conceded against Australia in 2 games, and that was with 13 men. 1 try conceded against Wales. Yeah, it's been a pretty impressive defensive shift from the Boks. Largely, there was 1 game, obviously, in the Irish series where they conceded a few, but yeah, the defence has generally tended to be pretty tight from the Springboks. But against Australia and Wales, maybe their attacks aren't up to the level that we've seen from the likes of potentially the All Blacks, so we'll kind of have to wait and see how that goes. Also, the final 20 minutes for the Boks have been deadly, man. 17 points in the final 20 against Wales, 14 points in one of the games against Ireland, 12 points in both games against Australia in the final 20. You can't match the Springboks physically for just 60 minutes. If you're not at it for the full 80, you're going to ship some points at the end of the game. If you're looking for a potential area of weakness, I don't know if it's a weakness, but the line-out percentage of 86 is low for the South Africans. Like, New Zealand is not much better, it's 87. But South Africa's line-out percentage is usually way higher. But they don't usually have as many locks out as they do at the moment. But, yeah, those are some South African stats for you. For the ABs, they have conceded a couple of maul tries, one against England and one against Argentina in that loss, and they haven't been scoring any maul tries of their own. But they are chucking it around a lot, like All Black sides tend to do. 10-plus offloads a game in pretty much every game except the second game against England. So the All Blacks have been more than happy to chuck the ball around, and with fine weather predicted, not like what I've got here, for the game at Joburg, you could probably expect a bit more of that. I mean, South Africa's been chucking around a bit as well. 7, kind of 8 average offloads a game, which is a bit below the All Blacks, around about 10, but not much below. But it also kind of goes against the stereotype with the All Blacks in recent times, and their discipline. It's been pretty good. The All Blacks have got a bad rep in recent times for giving away penalties and giving away cards, conceding 8.6 penalties a game under Razor. South Africa's at 10, which is unusual for South Africa. It's usually the flip. And 1 yellow card in 5 games, no red cards. Whereas South Africa's had 7 yellow cards and a red in 6 games. So 1 more game played, but a ton more cards. So, as I said, kind of it goes against the stereotype of both sides in recent times. England, game 1, the All Blacks only managed 2.2 metres a carry, which is really low. And then Argentina, game 1, 2.3 metres a carry, which is also really low. Remember, the magic number for metres a carry is around about 4. But in game 2 of both those games, they averaged over 4. So it seems like whatever they're doing in game 2, the All Blacks is getting a lot more improved. Game 1 against England, struggle. Game 2, a lot better. Game 1 against Argentina, struggle. Game 2, a lot better. Can they do it in game 1 against South Africa? You don't want to be giving these guys a big lead, that is for sure. Recent history between the sides is 3-2 in favour of the Springboks. It includes 1 game in Johannesburg, which the All Blacks won. That was the game where they had to save Fozzie's career. That was 35-23. Prior to that, you got the South African win in Bombella, which was 26-10. You've also had 35-7 to the Boks at Twickenham. And then obviously the 1 point at World Cup final. There's also a game at Mount Smart there in the mix too. So it's tended to be relatively close with, neither side across the last 5 getting any kind of real dominance. If you're looking at the last 6, last 7, it kind of tends to even out, but 23-20 is the average score across the last 5 games, so not a lot in it. What do the bookies say? They say not a lot, but they are saying Springboks as 6-point favourites, which is relatively comfortable. The All Blacks don't go into many games as underdogs, certainly not 6-point underdogs, and the Rugby Forecast algorithm is a little bit more conservative, saying South Africa by 2. It is on at Emirates Airline Park in Joburg. It should be a cracking atmosphere. It is a 5 p.m. local kickoff time, which is 3 a.m. for those of us here in New Zealand. Andrew Brace, the Irishman, is the ref. If you want to watch and you are in the States, it's on Flow Rugby. I'll put a link down to Flow down in the description because they are an affiliate of this channel. So check out Flow Rugby if you guys want to watch live or on demand in America. And can I say I like the fact that both the coaches are talking properly, like rugby stuff, prior to the game. Both coaches seem to have a heck of a lot of respect for each other. They talk about having a beer every now and again. They've traded stories in the past. Like, as much as sometimes rugby can be a bit bland in the way the coaches talk, both coaches seem genuinely enthusiastic to see these 2 world-class teams go head-to-head once again. And I think that's where most of us as fans are at as well. So, yeah, I'm absolutely chuffed. I'm pumped. You guys, there's any thoughts? How do you reckon this one is going to go? And I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.